Picture this. At 4:59 p.m. on a Friday, I pressed one button on my phone and turned a $3.8 million algorithm into a company-killing weapon. I am the lead data scientist who built it from scratch. The new VP, Derek Harlan, just handed my life's work to his golf buddy for a $200K bonus. By 9 a.m. Monday, 87 clients were screaming bankrupt while I sipped coffee on a one-way flight to Denver. Stick around, because the fallout gets brutal. I am Arya Voss, 32 years old, and a single mom to my 8-year-old daughter Harper. My brother Theo coaches high school basketball and always kids me that I speak 2 languages, code and bedtime stories. For the last 4 years, I worked 80-hour weeks at Apex Analytics in Austin, Texas, building a smart pricing engine that cut client losses by 42% and saved the company $3.8 million every single year. I was the only woman on the senior engineering team. My boss, VP Derek Harlan, is 48, loves golf on Thursdays, and told everyone in every meeting how great my work was. My dad, retired Air Force Colonel Ray Voss, raised me to tie up every loose end, so I kept secret backups of all my code on my own private server. Life felt good. Harper had soccer practice, I had my standing desk in the corner, and whispers of a big promotion meant we could finally leave our tiny one-bedroom apartment. Smash that subscribe button and comment where you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. Monday morning started like any other at Apex Analytics. I dropped Harper at school with her lunchbox full of dinosaur-shaped sandwiches, kissed her forehead, and promised to pick her up by 4. By 8:30, I was at my desk, coffee in hand, ready to push the latest update to the pricing engine. The office buzzed with the usual energy, keyboards clacking, Slack pings flying, and the smell of burnt popcorn from the kitchen. Then, the all-hands meeting invite popped up. Derek Harlan, our VP of Product, never called surprise meetings unless something big was happening. I grabbed my notebook and headed to the conference room, feeling a small spark of hope. Maybe this was it, the promotion I had earned after 4 straight quarters of record savings. Derek walked in with a wide grin, his golf tan still fresh from the weekend. Behind him trailed Trent Kowalski, his college buddy turned strategy consultant. Trent wore a loud pink polo tucked into khakis, looking more like he belonged on a country club than in a tech firm. Derek clapped his hands to quiet the room. Team, exciting news. We are bringing fresh energy to the pricing engine project. Trent here will take the lead starting today. He closed our Series C round, so the board approved a $200K success fee for him. Lena, your work laid the foundation, but now we scale. My heart stopped. The room spun a little. I built that engine from nothing. Every line of code, every late night, every client win was mine. I raised my hand, voice steady even though my hands shook under the table. Derek, I architected the entire system. Clients know me. They trust my updates. How does this work? Derek turned, his smile tight. Lena, it is business. Trent brings investor perspective. Upload the full code base to his drive by end of day. Simple. Trent winked at me like we were old pals. I wanted to scream. 4 years of 80-hour weeks, skipping Harper's school plays, eating dinner over my laptop, and now this? I nodded, said nothing, and walked back to my desk. My inbox already had the email. Arya Voss, share repo access with Trent, KowalskiApex.com immediately. No thank you. No discussion. That afternoon, I tried to focus, but every keystroke felt heavy. I opened the codebase and stared at the modules I named after Harper's favorite animals. Giraffe, Chart Optimizer, Panda, Predictor, Lion Loader. Each one saved millions. I thought about calling Theo, but he had practice. Instead, I texted Dad. Boss just gave my project to his friend. What do I do? His reply came fast. Document everything. Protect your work. I started screenshotting emails, saving chat logs, anything that proved ownership. Around 2 o'clock, Derek stopped by my cubicle with Trent. Lena, show Trent the dashboard. He needs to get up to speed. Trent leaned over my shoulder, breathing cologne and entitlement. Cool stuff, babe. I will make it sing. I forced a smile while my stomach turned. By 4 p.m., the office thinned out. Most people left early on Mondays for kids or the gym. I stayed, pretending to clean up files. Trent kept messaging me on Slack. Where's the training data? Need it now. Each ping felt like a slap. I answered short. Bought time. At 5:30, Derek appeared again, tie loosened. Lena, repo not shared yet. HR is waiting if you need motivation. His voice carried that fake friendly tone men use when they know they hold all the cards. I looked him in the eye. Derek, this engine is my intellectual property. I built it outside work hours too. You cannot just give it away. He laughed, loud enough for the cleaning crew to hear. Sweetie, you signed the IP agreement. Company owns everything. Clock is ticking. I walked to the bathroom, locked the stall, and let one tear fall. Not for him, for Harper. If I lost this job, we lost health insurance. Her asthma meds cost $300 a month. I splashed water on my face, fixed my ponytail, and marched back. That night, I picked Harper up late. She chattered about a goal she scored while I nodded on autopilot. At home, I cooked mac and cheese, read her a story about a brave lion, and tucked her in. Then I opened my laptop. The codebase stared back. Every line screamed betrayal. Theo called around 10. Sis, you okay? You sound wrecked. I told him everything. He went quiet, then said, They want to play dirty? Play smarter, but protect yourself first. I hung up, heart racing. Sleep never came. By midnight, I knew one thing. They drew first blood, but I still held the knife. If you're hooked so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button and comment where you're watching from. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The more I sat in that office, trying to focus on work, the more my thoughts became consumed by what had just happened. The words Derek had said, the way he handed over my work without a second thought, kept playing in my mind like a broken record. It wasn't just the algorithm he had stolen. It was my time, my effort, my trust. I had given my all to Apex Analytics, pouring hours of my life into building that pricing engine. But it didn't matter to them. Derek didn't care. Paul didn't care. The company didn't care. All they cared about was their golf game and their bonuses. I should have felt grateful for the promotion they had hinted at, for the recognition they pretended to give me in front of the team. But instead, I felt like a fool. I had worked harder than anyone at that company, sacrificed more, only to be replaced by someone with no technical knowledge, who was only there because of his connection to Derek. Paul wasn't a programmer. He wasn't a data scientist. He was just a golf buddy. The fact that Derek was willing to hand over my life's work to him for a bonus felt like a slap in the face. I had been betrayed, and I wasn't sure how I was supposed to deal with it. Every time I sat down at my desk, it felt like my heart was beating faster, my chest tightening with the weight of this betrayal. The email had come through almost immediately. Arya Voss, share repo access with Trent, Kowalski, aapex.com, immediately. No thank you for all the hard work I'd put in. No acknowledgement of the late nights, the research, the personal sacrifices I'd made to make this algorithm successful. Just a cold, impersonal email asking for access, as though I was some low-level employee whose contributions were easily forgotten. I had put so much into that project, and in a matter of minutes, it was being handed over to someone who wouldn't even understand the intricacies of the system. I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. I couldn't just sit back and let this happen. The only thing I could think of was to protect myself, to make sure they couldn't just erase my work like it had never existed. So, I began to document everything. I started saving every email, every chat log, every piece of communication that proved I was the one who had built the algorithm. If Derek and Paul thought they could wipe me out that easily, they were wrong. I wasn't going down without a fight. Around 2 o'clock, Derek stopped by my cubicle. Paul was with him, as usual, standing too close, his cologne overwhelming. Lena, show Trent the dashboard, Derek said. I tried to keep my composure, but it was getting harder. I could feel the anger bubbling under the surface, the pressure building up as I walked to the conference room with them. I was being asked to show Paul how to use something that I had spent years perfecting. He had no clue how it worked, and he certainly didn't deserve to be the one in charge of it. It felt like I was being asked to hand over my life's work to someone who wouldn't appreciate it, someone who would probably destroy it. Cool stuff, babe, Trent said, peering over my shoulder. His tone was casual, as if I was just some assistant showing him how to use the dashboard. "I'll make it sing." I wanted to scream at him to get out of my face, but I held it together, forcing a smile. "Sure, Trent," I said, as calmly as I could. "You can make it sing all you want, but it's not going to work if you don't understand the foundation." They didn't care. Derek was already off on another tangent, talking about scaling the system, adding new features, expanding the business. I couldn't even listen anymore. They were talking about things that had never crossed my mind, because I knew the algorithm needed no scaling. It was perfect. The way it was designed, the way it functioned, was the product of years of hard work. But to them, it was just a tool to make more money. The emotional weight of the situation hit me harder than I expected. The hours seemed to drag as I sat there, showing Paul the basics of the dashboard. He didn't understand a single thing I said, and that only made me angrier. Every time he said "we" in reference to the project, I could feel my teeth grinding. He had done nothing. He hadn't put in the hours. He didn't know the first thing about coding or optimizing algorithms. But there he was, taking credit for something that I had built from scratch. He didn't deserve any of it, and I couldn't just sit back and let him have it. By the time 5 p.m. came around, I was drained. The office was quieter, but my mind was racing. I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened, what was about to happen. I felt like I was losing control of my own life. My thoughts kept circling back to Harper, to my daughter, and what I had sacrificed for this job. I'd missed her school events, her soccer games. All for what? So Derek could hand my hard work over to some guy who didn't even care? At 5:30, Derek stopped by again. His tie was loosened. A smile plastered across his face like he was proud of what he'd done. "Lena, repo not shared yet. HR is waiting if you need motivation," he said, his voice dripping with that fake friendliness I hated. I stared at him, trying to keep my cool. "Derek, this engine is my intellectual property. I built it outside work hours, too. You cannot just give it away." His laugh was loud enough for the cleaning crew to hear. "Sweetie, you signed the IP agreement. Company owns everything. Clock is ticking." I walked away from him, each step feeling heavier than the last. I was cornered. There was no getting out of this without a fight. They had stolen what was mine, and now they were about to destroy everything I had worked for. I had to act. But what could I do? How could I make them see that they had made a huge mistake? That night, I texted my dad. I needed advice, something to hold on to in the storm. His reply came quickly. "Document everything. Protect your work." It was simple, but it made me realize what I needed to do. I had one shot to take back control, and I would make it count. The next few hours were a blur. As I sat at my desk, every time I glanced over at the email from Derek or the messages from Trent, a wave of anger washed over me. I felt my entire body tense up. I had spent years building this algorithm, creating something that saved the company millions, and now they were just handing it off to someone who didn't deserve it. I could feel the frustration boiling over, but I had to keep it together. The last thing I needed was to lose my job over my emotions. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to just let them steal my work and get away with it. I stared at my screen, my mind racing, trying to figure out how to deal with what had just happened. How could I protect myself? How could I ensure that this wasn't the end of everything I had worked so hard for? I had one option, one shot at making them regret what they had done. I wasn't just going to let them take everything from me. Then it hit me. I had always been careful. I had always kept backups of my work, not just in the cloud, but also on my own private server. I had anticipated this possibility from the moment I had started at Apex. I had known that the company could eventually try to claim ownership of everything I built, but I wasn't stupid enough to just hand it over without protection. And that protection, that fail-safe, was exactly what I needed now. I took a deep breath and began to work. First, I opened the codebase one last time. It felt like saying goodbye to a part of myself, but I had to do it. I couldn't just let Paul, Derek, and the whole company walk away with something that belonged to me. I quickly cloned the main repository and created a new branch. Then, I stripped every comment, renamed variables to random, meaningless strings, and pushed it to Trent's drive. I could almost hear his smug voice, his self-satisfied grin, as he looked at my code without understanding a thing. It felt like a hollow victory, but it was a necessary step. I wasn't done yet. That wasn't enough. I couldn't let this be a simple inconvenience for them. I needed to make them feel the weight of what they had done. And that's when I remembered the failsafe I had built into the system. It was something I had created a while back during a routine security audit, a hidden flag that could be triggered to disable the pricing engine entirely, a last resort in case of a breach. I had never imagined I'd use it this way, but now it felt like the perfect tool for the job. I tested it on a local copy first. The moment I triggered it, the dashboard went haywire. Prices across every client's account dropped to 0.011. It was a simple fix on their end, but it would take time. Time they didn't have. Time that would cost them millions. My heart raced as I watched the test run perfectly. It was my fail-safe, but now it was my weapon. I immediately wrapped the trigger into a small script and set it to deploy automatically at 4:59 p.m. on Friday. The moment the clock hit that time, the kill switch would activate, and the pricing engine would self-destruct. I tied it to my personal API key, which meant I could deploy it from anywhere without leaving a trace. No one would be able to trace it back to me. They would be blind to the source, and by then, it would be too late. At 4 p.m., I made the call. I booked a flight to Denver for Friday morning, one way, non-stop. I didn't want to leave anything behind. I wasn't going to stick around for the fallout. The next few days were crucial, and I needed to be far away when everything hit the fan. It was a calculated risk, but I knew that this was my only option if I wanted to protect what I had built and take control of my life again. I didn't tell anyone about the flight. I didn't mention it to my colleagues, not even to Theo. I didn't want to risk anyone knowing what I was about to do. If this failed, I needed to be ready to leave without anyone following me. I had no intention of returning to Apex, not after they had stolen my work and given it to someone who didn't deserve it. Later that afternoon, Derek stopped by my desk again. He was cheerful, overly so, with that irritatingly condescending smile. "Lena," he said, looking at me as if everything was fine. "Repo's still not shared. HR's waiting on your motivation, sweetie." His voice carried that fake friendly tone he always used when he thought he had control. I stared at him for a long moment, feeling the weight of everything I had just decided. But I didn't flinch. I didn't back down. "Derek," I said, calm but firm, "this engine is my intellectual property. I built it outside work hours, and I won't let you give it away without consequences." His smile faltered for just a second, but he quickly regained his composure. He laughed, dismissively, as though I were just being dramatic. But I knew better. I had already made my decision, and there was no turning back. I walked away from him, feeling the tension drain from my shoulders. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew that it was time to put my plan into motion. Friday was only a few days away, and I could already feel the rush of anticipation building. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about taking back control of my future. The week dragged on with a strange tension hanging in the air. I could feel it in the office. The way people moved a little faster, whispered a little quieter. The way Derek's smile seemed more strained, and how Paul's over-the-top enthusiasm felt forced. They had no idea what was coming. The clock was ticking, and I was already counting down the hours in my head. Every minute that passed, I felt closer to the moment when I would take control of my life again. By Thursday, my nerves had steadied. I knew the worst part was still ahead, but I was ready. Harper had soccer practice, and I found myself feeling an odd sense of calm as I watched her run up and down the field. The simplicity of her joy was a reminder of why I was doing this. It wasn't just about the algorithm or the money. It was about protecting her future, ensuring that she could grow up in a world where hard work and loyalty actually meant something. Back at the office, Derek had just wrapped up his daily motivational talk with the team. He was acting like everything was fine, like nothing was wrong. But I knew better. I had been watching the changes, seeing how the cracks were starting to show. Paul had been emailing me nonstop, asking for access to more of the codebase, asking about data he didn't understand. It was almost pathetic, but it was also the last straw. I was done waiting. At 4:58 p.m. on Friday, I sat at my desk for the final time. The office had already started to thin out. Most people were heading out early for the weekend, eager to escape the grind for a few days. But I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't just going to leave with a resignation letter. I wasn't going to let them take my work without feeling the impact of what they had done. I watched the clock tick closer to 4:59 p.m., and my heart rate sped up. Derek and Paul were standing by the glass wall, chatting and laughing, as usual. Derek slapped Paul on the back like they were the best of friends, both of them basking in their false sense of victory. Paul was boasting about how he'd make the pricing engine sing, bragging about all the fresh ideas he had. I couldn't stand it. I had worked for years on that engine, and now they were treating it like a toy they could play with, but I wasn't going to let them have it. I had the power, and I was about to use it. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I opened my phone and tapped the button to activate the kill switch. My heart skipped a beat as the confirmation flashed on the screen. Sunset mode active. I watched as the script I had written pushed the changes live. Instantly, every client account using the pricing engine saw their prices drop to $0.01. The chaos would begin in minutes. Derek's voice boomed across the office, but it was drowned out by the ping of notifications flooding my phone. I smiled to myself, not out of joy, but out of satisfaction. They thought they could take what I had worked for, but now they were about to see how much they needed me. As I walked toward Derek's office to hand in my badge, I glanced over my shoulder at the first Slack ping hitting the screen. A client had already flagged the issue. Another notification popped up, then another. By the time I reached Derek's office, my phone was buzzing relentlessly. I slid my badge across his desk without a word. His eyes widened as he looked up, the confusion and panic already starting to set in. He opened his mouth, but before he could say anything, I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. The elevator ride down felt like an eternity, but I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The worst was over. I had done it. I had taken back what was mine. I had done what needed to be done, not just for me, but for everyone who had ever been pushed aside or undervalued. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. When I reached the parking garage, I could hear my phone vibrating in my bag. I didn't answer. I knew it was Derek. I could already imagine his voice, louder now, frantic. But it was too late. The damage had been done. The engine I had built, the one they thought they could take without consequence, was now their nightmare. As I drove to the airport, my mind kept racing, but my hands were steady on the wheel. I wasn't nervous. I was free. I wasn't running from something. I was running towards something better. When I landed in Denver, I was ready to begin a new chapter of my life, one where I would never again let anyone take what I had worked for. I checked my phone when I got through security. 43 missed calls, 87 Slack messages, 120 emails. I smirked, knowing it was only the beginning of the chaos they would face. I didn't bother reading through them. I had already made my peace. The world would have to wait. My new life was just beginning. The fallout from my decision didn't come quickly. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash, but every minute of it was satisfying in its own way. As I sat on the plane to Denver, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of calm. I had done what needed to be done. I had made my move, and while I wasn't sure exactly how everything would play out, I knew that I had taken control of my life again, something that had been slipping through my fingers for far too long. By the time I landed, the chaos was already unfolding back at Apex. My phone had exploded with missed calls and notifications, emails from clients, from the executive team, from Derek himself. I let it all pile up, turning the volume off on my phone as I walked through the terminal. I was done with them, done with the stress of watching my hard work be stolen, done with the feeling of being invisible in a room full of people who didn't care about anything I had done. When I finally turned my phone back on, I could see it all, every email, every text message, and every Slack ping. The first notification came from a major client, already panicked, questioning why the pricing engine had crashed. Others followed. Why are our prices all showing 001? We can't process these orders. And what's going on with the dashboard? We need it fixed, immediately. Then, the floodgates opened. Messages from Derek and Paul. They were frantic. I didn't bother reading them. Let them stew in their mess for a while. They had no idea what they were dealing with, and I wasn't about to clean up their mess. As I boarded the plane to Denver, I reflected on how far I had come. The last 4 years at Apex had been filled with long hours, dedication, and sacrifices. I had missed family events, late-night homework sessions with Harper, and countless weekends working on something that wasn't even being recognized. But the final straw wasn't just being overlooked. It was how easily they had handed over my work, my blood, sweat, and tears, to someone who didn't deserve it. It wasn't even about the money. It was about respect. It was about recognizing that I had earned every bit of that success, and they couldn't just take it away. In the coming days, the aftermath was swift and unforgiving. Apex was in full crisis mode. Derek and Paul, clueless about how to fix the system, scrambled to put out fires. The company's entire pricing infrastructure was built on my algorithm, and without it, their clients were seeing massive errors in pricing. Orders were being processed with 0.01 values, costing them millions. It was chaos. I watched as the news spread. The company's stock started to plummet, and their reputation in the market began to deteriorate. The board called emergency meetings. Clients were threatening lawsuits. And through it all, I knew one thing. I wasn't going to save them. They didn't deserve to be saved. They had taken me for granted, used my work as a stepping stone to advance their own careers. And now they were paying the price. But it wasn't just about their downfall. It was about me taking back control of my future. I had been loyal to them for years, worked harder than anyone, and for what? To be pushed aside for a golf buddy with no expertise? No, it was my time now. It was time to build something new, something that wouldn't just be taken from me when they saw an opportunity to make a quick buck. I received several offers in the first few days after my departure. Summit Metrics, the rival company I'd quietly started speaking with weeks before, was the first to send me an offer letter. The recruiter, Sarah, had been persistent, and when I finally reached out, her response was everything I needed: a $240K base salary, with full relocation and an equity package. It wasn't just a good deal. It was my opportunity to start fresh, to be recognized for the work I did, and to never again feel like I was invisible in the corporate world. When I arrived in Denver, everything started to feel right. I had left the chaos behind. Summit gave me a real office, not a cubicle. They offered me the chance to rebuild their pricing platform from scratch, with the resources and respect I had always deserved. It was the beginning of something new, something mine. No golf buddies, no consultant friends, just a team that valued hard work and dedication. But it wasn't just about the work. It was about the life I was able to build for Harper. We had a real home now, one with space for her to run and play. I could take her to her soccer games without worrying about missing them for work. I could be there for her every step of the way. That, to me, was the real success. And then there was the aftermath of Apex's failure. In the weeks that followed, I watched their stock continue to drop. Derek's LinkedIn changed to open to new opportunities. Paul's social media went quiet. And in the ultimate act of karma, Trent's consulting gig was vaporized. He wasn't even mentioned in the press release when they announced strategic restructuring, which was just a corporate euphemism for firing people and selling off the parts of the company that still had value. Apex's new pricing platform never recovered. It was gutted. The pieces sold off to a private equity firm that couldn't even salvage the code. I felt nothing. I didn't care. They had taken what was mine, and now they had nothing left. As for me, I continued to thrive at Summit. I rebuilt the pricing system, cutting down processing times and adding features that not only improved efficiency, but also kept clients happy. Summit's stock rose. My equity vested early. I was finally where I belonged, doing the work I loved, getting the recognition I deserved, and living a life where I controlled my future. Looking back, I realized the most important lesson. Power isn't about having the corner office or the title. It's about knowing that your work, your contributions, cannot be taken from you if you hold the key. I built that engine. I held the master key. And no one, not Derek, not Paul, could ever take that away from me. If you're feeling inspired by this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? And what would you have done in my shoes?